Alec Baldwin in the news for that awful situation on the set of that movie Rust. He is, he gave this interview to George Stephanopoulos a week ago. Mistake. Just be quiet. Just figure out what's going to happen. You don't want to be charged criminally. They haven't ruled you out. Just be quiet. There's plenty of time for a PR tour later. Of course, he wasn't quiet. Then he got confronted by New York Post reporter John Levine. Apparently what I read is Alec was going into the home of Woody Allen. I guess he's staying at Woody Allen's townhouse. I was like, so many stories culminating together. Alec's been in a bunch of Woody movies. Anyway, watch what happened. He's on the edge.
Wait, Mr. Baldwin, I have to ask you, what brings you to New York City?
I asked you to leave.
Mr. Baldwin, who's here?
I asked you to go away. Please go away.
The photograph under somebody's private home.
This is not anyone's private home. Are you?
Private home.
This is public property.
Go away. Stop.
Who's here? Did you really not pull the trigger?
Come.
Do you believe it went off without you pulling the trigger? Was it a malfunction?
He's trying to piss you off.
All right. Is it just me or is Hilaria still using her fake Spanish accent? There's like a tinge. Is there not?
How you say cucumber? How is that? That was just so.
I asked you to go away.
I have to tell you, Megyn, fun fact. When I was at your, and I want to go really quickly, when I was at your book party, I double dog dared Mark Thiessen. We were standing over in the corner. Alec Baldwin was there with his wife. And we were double dog daring each other to go up and say something to him. And he triple dog dared me. So I said, okay. And Mark's jaw dropped to the floor. And so I went over there and I was like, hello, Mr. Baldwin. And he looked at me like I was a two-headed cow. It was the craziest, most uncomfortable thing. His wife did not say anything at all, but he was he was like a robot. He was like, okay, yeah, hello. And then that was kind of it. And then I walked back to where our little cluster of people were. And I thought Mark Thiessen was 3 shades of red. I just wanted to make him uncomfortable and laugh. It was funny.
Good times. Listen, I think I might be in the minority. I feel bad for Alec Baldwin. I don't believe he did anything intentional. I'm sure he's suffering as a result of this, but that doesn't answer any of the other questions about whether he has some legal responsibility, criminal or otherwise. I don't think there's going to be criminal responsibility for him, but obviously he's going to get sued. His production company is through the eyeballs and they're going to have to pay, and that's what insurance is for.
Which is crazy that there wouldn't be criminal charges. And look, I have a history of not getting along with him, but I can put that aside because, again, I always am very, very wary of what could be established by any kind of, legal proceeding. Yeah. And I don't think that he acted out of any kind of malice. I don't think that he had planned to kill this woman, but I do think that it was recklessness and negligence. And maybe in the future, he will lecture people less when we want to advocate for education and safety. Maybe he will lecture those people less and listen a little bit more. And now that we see ultimately what can be the horrible result of not being responsible and not having that education and not being safe.
That's why, in part, he's getting so much blowback from, certain media outlets and certain corners, because he is a judgmental guy. He's very political. He was defending Andrew Cuomo, for God's sake. It's like, Andrew, never mind the other guy. Andrew did not deserve his defense. And he's constantly attacking people and judging them. And so you put yourself out there like that, you're going to get it back if you misstep, which we all do. Maybe not in this way, but I want to ask you about his claim, because what he said to George was that he didn't pull the trigger. We have the soundbite. I'd love to get your thoughts on whether you believe this. Here he is.
It wasn't in the script for the trigger to be pulled.
Well, the trigger wasn't pulled. I didn't pull the trigger.
So you never pulled the trigger?
No. I would never point a gun at anyone and pull a trigger at them. Never.
What did you think happened? How did a real bullet get on that set?
I have no idea. Someone put a live bullet in a gun, a bullet that wasn't even supposed to be on the property.
And what he said in the longer clip, Dana, was it was a Colt 35, like old school, and that he pulled the hammer back. He said, I pulled it back as far as you could pull it back without pulling it back all the way. And then I let it go, and then the gun went off. And there was a gun expert who was speaking with Good Morning Britain, who said that's not possible. And he said it's highly unlikely. Maybe in some fantasy world it's possible, but he said on this gun you would have to pull the actual trigger. You could pull the trigger and make the hammer, go, but you can't pull the hammer back and make the trigger go. That was what he said. I don't know that guy. I know you. I know you know your stuff. So what do you make of this claim?
Yeah, this is where it gets into a lot of nuance about this type of revolver, because this was a single action. It is a 1837 Pieta replica. I believe it was a replica made by a company. So it's not. And my point in saying that is that it's not an antique gun. So this is something that was made with modern methods to resemble what they used in spaghetti westerns. And I've heard a couple of different accounts from eyewitnesses on set where they say he did have his finger by the trigger or in the guard, or he did not. But for his comment to Stephanopoulos, when he said, well, he didn't point the gun at anyone and I didn't pull the trigger. Well, he absolutely did point the gun at someone, because that someone who had the gun pointed at them was killed. And it gets into the nuance of, the hammer and how single action works and, cowboy loads and all this other stuff, which I think is important, but it's nuance. The important issue is that he was the producer on set. He's the top talent on set. He runs that set. He helps determine safety protocols for that set. He hires the armorer. He helps develop the protocols with the armorer. He has made enough films involving firearms over the past 40 years that he's not excluded from responsibility because of celebrity. And apparently it seems that that's what he's arguing in this discussion with George Stephanopoulos. Now, with his revolver, whether or not he pulled the hammer back, it would be now almost impossible for what he's describing to actually happen. The bottom line is that he was reckless in not checking the firearm. He was reckless, and you just pop the cylinder out and it's very easy to see what's a dummy bullet and what's a live round because of the way that it's pinched off at the end. He could have very easily have done that, especially as he was talking about with Stephanopoulos. They weren't even required to discharge a gun in a scene that was being filmed that day at all. So right. I understand what he's trying to do with his argument. I think it's reckless for him. This was kind of a Hail Mary, I think, by his legal team. He was very clearly told to go out and plant the seed of doubt in that, well, if there's even a 1% chance that this could have happened because it's a single action, then you put that seed out there. But it doesn't, that may result in over a technicality, a reduced charge. But the fact that he would skate on a criminal charge, that would be a political decision and not one born of fact.
I feel like he didn't need to do this because no one is arguing he's the one who put the bullets into the gun. Whoever was responsible for putting the actual live rounds into that gun is the person responsible, assuming they knew that it was live rounds. There's now a dispute. The armorer's dad is apparently the most famous armorer in Hollywood. And he came out and said this week he thinks that sabotage might have been to blame. There was a lot of motive, he thought, for sabotage, he said. Somebody wanted to cause a safety incident on set. He said through his lawyer, or his daughter's lawyer said, somebody wanted to cause a safety incident on set. Nobody wanted anyone to be killed. But we've developed evidence of motive here, why they wanted to do that, why Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, might have been a target. And that has all gone to the sheriff. Now, of course, the armorer has a reason to say, somebody else sabotaged me. But my point is, no one's saying Alec Baldwin took a live round and put it in the gun and then pointed it and shot, right? Like that would be true recklessness you could charge, even if he intended to kill no one. He didn't need this. He could have said, somebody gave me the gun. They said it was a cold gun. I trusted them. Okay, good for you, George Clooney. You always check your guns, but not everybody does that. And I did what she told me to do, which was I did point it near her, and I did pull the trigger, and I shouldn't have done that. But pulling the trigger in and of itself is not recklessness if, a billion guns are used on sets and bullets are, fake bullets are used and so on. Like, he didn't need it. It's just he's desperate.
Yeah.